Russell's screams woke the rest of us up in no time. When Donald and Anna woke up, Anna was about to scream as she sprung up from her sleeping position, but Donald quickly covered her mouth and held her close. I gasped and looked around anxiously, but did not so much as squeal. Nick grunted and grinded his teeth, but did not yelp when he woke. The creature hissed as it slowly began to move around and sniff for us. Nick slowly unzipped the flap of his tent to take a peek at the monster. He could see the rear end of the monster standing over Russell's dead body, with his face resting atop the hot coals. Nick was terrified. His mind filled with hopelessness and his heart grew heavy with loss. But Nick knew if he was going to have any chance at surviving whatever followed, he would have to buck up and look for an alternative. Across the way, far from camp, Nick saw Russell's gun resting on the snow. Nick unzipped the rest of the flap, trying not to make too much noise in the process. Nick's eyes became teary. His breath quivered. He mentally prepared for what he was about to do. When the flap was unzipped all the way, Nick took a deep breath and jolted out of his tent for the rifle. The creature was startled and turned toward Nick. It leaped toward Nick, but Nick was too quick. Nick ran, and he didn't hear the creature chasing behind him. Still, he continued to run as fast as his legs would carry him. Nick reached the gun and quickly turned to face the creature, but it was nowhere to be found. Nick listened intently. There was a long moment of psychotic silence where nothing but the gentle winds and the fall of snowflakes could be heard. Then a deep, dim set of thuds seemed to be racing after Nick. They sounded almost like a pump. They got louder and quicker, and the thuds seemed to match Nick's own heartbeat. He turned swiftly and aimed his gun toward the noise. He could see the figure of a creature rushing toward him on two legs, moving with great velocity. In a haste, he fired his gun at the figure, and a loud gorilla roar filled the air.
Oh, shit. That wasn't the one that killed Russell, I don't think.
Nick panted, looking this way and that. He heard loud grunts echoing from afar.
Up! Up!
A deep voice shouted. Nick was taken off guard at first. He wasn't anticipating to hear what he just had. Nevertheless, he had a feeling he was being warned, so he did as the shouts instructed. When he looked straight above himself, he saw the pair of glowing green eyes staring down at him. Nick tried to reload the rifle as quickly as he could, but almost as soon as he cocked the rifle, the creature dropped down on top of Nick. The weight of the creature forced out all the air Nick had in his lungs. Nick couldn't scream. He could hardly grunt. His ribs and shoulders were broken. But before he could attempt to inhale or even think to defend himself, with Nick's mouth wide open, the creature reached down wickedly fast and tore out Nick's tongue, his throat filled with blood. All he could do was stare up at those green eyes in terror, and within a few short moments, he was dead. Meanwhile, Donald and Anna stayed quiet and tried to figure out how to escape. We all heard the gunshot fired by Nick and the loud yells made by the gorilla-like figure.
Who fired that shot? Who shouted?
Anna asked desperately. Donald hushed Anna. When she was calm, Donald peeked outside the tent.
Russell was the last one to have the watch. By the look of it, he's been killed already. His body lies still in the fire, with his head planted in the coals.
It must have been Nick, then. Or Alina.
Shh! Keep your voice down. Now, from what I can see, Alina is still in her tent, which means Nick is out there. It's momentarily hard to say if he's still alive or not.
Anna covered Donald's mouth and gestured to the back of their tent with her eyes. There they watched the shadow of the creature move across the tent's fabric. Its footsteps were almost silent and might have been if not for the crumbling snow moving below the creature's footing. The monster growled loudly. Donald slowly reached for his bag and unzipped a pocket. He reached in and pulled out a knife. Donald looked at Anna and placed his index finger over his closed lips. Donald reached for Anna's bag and delicately took out her wingsuit. The creature then lingered elsewhere but stayed close to camp.
Take this, rush over to Alina's tent, tell her to put on her wingsuit as well, and when you're both ready, you run as fast as you can and you fly off the cliff.
And what about you? You're coming home with us, aren't you?
Anna, we both know in order for anyone to get off this mountain at this point, we're going to need someone to serve as a distraction. I brought us all up here, and if anyone deserves to risk their lives so that the rest of us can escape, it's me.
No, you're coming with us.
Anna, listen!
No, listen! You put on your wingsuit right now and tell me that you'll be right behind me and Alina to get off of this mountain. I may still be pissed off with you for bringing us here, but I'll hate you even more if you don't come back with us. I'm not ready to let you go. There's so much you owe me.
I know I do. I know I haven't been giving you the attention you've needed. I know you feel I haven't been loyal enough to you. I know I haven't been around to support you enough, to see if you're alright with still wanting to be with me. I actually planned this whole trip to see if I could fix this, but it's too late for that, and I'm so sorry. I really am. The only thing that matters now is that I make it up to you and ensure that you go on from all this.
Anna was touched by Donald's words and didn't seem to be expecting them. Anna took a deep breath, nodded her head, and started to cry.
I accept your apology. Thank you, but please just put on the wingsuit.
All right.
He placed his hands on Anna's shoulders. Donald and Anna hugged each other. Anna sniffed as she and Donald put their heads together. She took a deep breath. She was soothed by the sound of her and Donald's breath and Donald's arms around her.
I'll be right behind you. No matter what happens, I will always care for you more than anyone else, and I will always be with you.
All of a sudden, the tent tore. There was a quick, loud roar, and Donald was pulled away by the creature. Donald screamed and dropped the knife. Only a few feet away from the tent, Anna saw Donald get thrown against a tree. Donald was brutally attacked by the creature. Anna almost didn't know what to do but mourn. Anna looked down at Donald's knife, picked it up, cut a large opening through the fabric of the tent, and rushed over to me.
Alina, help!
I quickly opened my tent to Anna and zipped the flap behind her. Anna started crying loudly. Anna, shh, I said.
He was supposed to come with us. He promised.
It's all right. I already had my wingsuit on, and I'd been waiting for the right opportunity where I could safely fly away. All right, Anna, I need you to focus now. Whatever this fucker is, it's still preoccupied at the moment. We have an opportunity to leave unnoticed and unharmed, which means I'm going to need you to buck up now, all right? You need to be quiet, and you need to keep up with me. Think you can do that? Anna sniffed and calmed her breathing.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay then, follow me, I said. I gently unzipped the flap of my tent and held Anna's hand. I looked over where the creature killed Donald and found it nowhere in sight. I sighed heavily, looked back at Anna and whispered, "Ready?" Anna nodded her head. I smiled, held her hand tight, and looked forward. Together, Anna and I rushed toward the cliff. One step after the other, we moved closer and closer to the cliff. We lifted our knees high in and out of the thick snow. We can make it, I thought. We're going to make it. Without warning, something large in size slid in front of us. Anna screamed. We looked briefly to our left where the large thing had slid from. Once again, I saw the large, green, glowing eyes. The creature growled at us, and for a long moment, we all stood still. The eyes were just staring at us with hopes of inflicting fear. But I stared back with defiance in my eyes. Anna shivered and was horrified. After the moment passed, the creature gave out another long shriek. "Run!" I shouted. Anna and I moved as quickly as we could, but it wasn't quick enough for Anna. Before I knew it, she had been tackled by the creature and dragged away. The only thing that finally stopped me from running toward the cliff was when I heard her screams, shouting my name for help. "Anna!" I screamed.